Mama was taking me to the clinic for inoculations against polio. And so we walked from Blofley, up the hill and down the hill onto Boundary Road. We were emerging, through the forest onto a street when a colored boy, young man, whizzed past on a bicycle and shouted at us, "Kafir! Kafir!" My mother was so incensed, she yelled right back, "Ukafile ngunyoko!" Your mother is a kafir. And I had never had my mother swear or at somebody she didn't even know. And right then for me, and I'd never had anybody disrespect my mother like that, call my mother kafir. I realized how wounded she was. And also the sense of powerlessness, that people can say things, you can't stop people saying things. And that to that young man, my mother was a nothing, just a kafir.
Blacks were workers. Blacks were the people who carried things. Blacks were the diggers and the cleaners and the general sanitizing forces in our lives.
We would sometimes take pot shots. We go up to the farm on the Limpopo, we take pot shots at the blacks if they're walking far away.
This camp, it was one of the clandestinity camp of the South African. Yeah, this one, it was a chamber of torturing, ma'am. It was a camp, but it was a chamber of torturing.
I said to my mother, I don't want black hands to wash me. And I knew it wasn't true.
De apartheid vir swart mense is nog nie klaar nie. Die wit mense, hulle maak of die apartheid is klaar, is nie klaar nie. Apartheid was nie lekker nie. Al die goede, jy gaan by die winkel, jy het jou eie deur, daar's die kafir se deur en daar's die wit mense se deur by die toilet, jy toilet daar so, jy kan nie saam met die wit mense gaan nie.
Kwa ke go kwane go sna ka sna molato. Ha re ya lwana, ha re ya bola motho, ga etsa letho. Ba tla fela bona ka pick up.
I saw in our street on a fairly regular basis police cars, vans stopping and picking up black men. And I have this vision constantly of their hands in the wire netting at the back of the van as they were carried off.
And then just before the end, before they were ready to go and take Monty with them, the guy in charge said, I think I'd better go and see who's in that room. So he opens the door and he flashes the light, and of course Hugh's got the blankets right over his head. And he flashes the torch around and he sees on the floor a pair of red underpants. And he says, I knew that there was something because no white man would have red underpants. So he went and he pulled the covers back. And there was Hugh. And then they got so excited that they had a black guy sleeping in the house. That was the important thing, which was illegal, of course.
There was a rumor that we were going to be moved to all Blofley and adjacent things like Zwedicha or new site location. The Africans in retreat, in other words, were going to be moved to Nyanga. And people didn't believe it. The morning, breaks like every morning. People are busy in their houses. The bulldozers come. And if you're not fast enough to get out, those people were not ready. The bulldozers come and lift, the structure. And you have to get out. Otherwise, you might be hurt. People walked, either, with a donkey cart or just walked. Rows and rows of people, bundles on their heads and on their shoulders and whatever way they could carry them. It was like, people fleeing a war or some, calamity like that.
Dudu sana, ya jambo ya mienhle. Dudu sana, dingete sana, piki omuhle. Dingete sana lwa, dingete sana lwa.
We would tell each other, hey, listen, what's the fastest thing in the world, eh? And then the other guys would go, no, we don't know, a car or whatever. And he says, no man, it's an Indian on a bike through the Orange Free State.
Coloureds and Indians couldn't stay over in the Free State. They could only pass through the Free State. In matric, we arranged, or the school arranged, a trip for us to Durban. And coming through the Free State, the bus driver died. Also because he was non-white, nobody wanted to accept the body. So we had to leave the Free State before we could offload his body.
Ek het eendag my pentie gewas het. Die pentie hulle die kant voor gehad het, hulle was 4 van hulle. Toe as ek was om, die missie sê kom. Wie se pentie is daai ene? Ek sê is my pentie. Toe sy sê, is jou pentie? Ek sê ja. Toe sy sê, jy dink, jy raak wet nou, ne? Is nie my kennis se pentie daai en toe ek sê nee, toe sy sê ek moet hom afvat by sy draad, wat sal die baas sê as hy my pentie sê?
The white Afrikaners, most of farmers, has a nanny or a couple in the house that becomes, like when the parents are not there, they become your mother, your substitute mother. Sometimes even you're getting breastfed by them. If they get organized, say all the black maids or black workers in the white areas would get organized, would they then together kill us in our houses because they know where the guns were? So I was starting to think like that. Better have to lock the gun away because, she might get to it.
Hona le nako ye man tlas mane pela lewatle empa se pela lewatle ka kwa a ke re le hlabate fela ka mona ke le hlabate fela ka mane ba le lo itshike le fu ya dikategolo di gafu tsa lona dikategolo le di gafu tsa lona le ntho tsohle tsa lona o lo itshikela le bika go o tla wa ema ko ene unzo chika hona mo ke sekoti se le kana nna unzo se bona ke ga on tante ke ga ba le tla se mane hai tla o tla nkile gagafu ya ne ha o fela ha ka ta itshagalla tsena monna iso ka mokanye ka we tlo mano itshagalla tlo nyamana nda tapa wele mo buona wele a go utsi mo mela le mo wena nda tapa o thefula ka le mahetla ho tloa senka 8 o fihlela ka 6 mantsibo tsa dile na ga e mhlangong ntse ba betsa rain tsena tsa rona mona ba ja dinyama ka mefuta-futa.
Then it's up to them now to decide which way they are going to humiliate you. By putting sand on you, by putting you on water, or this other one, it was just dug up to this size of which I am now, where I'm standing like this. Now they make you vice versa. Your legs up, then the head underneath. Then here, these two arms of yours, if you go like this, see, they remains like this. Now they trap you here. When trapping you here, they put water in, and people that are holding your legs like this, and they put water in here. I'm holding at your leg like this, and the other one is holding the leg, and I'm stepping on your arms. Then they put water in. Putting water in there, then you put certain amount of sandy. For a few minutes, let's feel now the sound.
We were sweeping through this area, and there were a lot of people lying dead. Some were wounded, some were flown back, some were treated by our medics and so on. But then I got to this guy that was, you could see when somebody's busy dying, he's got a couple of minutes left, and and I remember I look at him, and it looked like a guy, a black guy from my childhood or something. And I was just practically thinking, I have a knife with me, my survival knife, which all soldiers have. I'm just going to help this guy out of his misery. And I've done it with animals before. You cut their throat, and it's an easy thing to do. And he would be out of his misery. He's anyway dying, I thought. So I pulled out my survival knife, and I start cutting his throat. And God, it wasn't as easy as I thought. Here, the knife got stuck in the spine of this guy, and I was trying to saw through the spine when this gush of wind came up into my face. When this gush of wind came up in my face, and it felt like it was his soul coming into me. So, and I carried on cutting, and until I cut right through his spinal cord. And I think ever since that time, I carry this guy in me, his spirit. Just give me a moment, yeah. It is. Well, and then you 17, 18 years old, I haven't even had a girlfriend at that time,
It's past. Even if I feel angry, it is already done on me. Nothing I can do. What can I do? They did it. They're gone. I've remained here in Namibia. Nothing else.
So apartheid was not just about the past. It was about the past, yes, and the past laws. But it was also about how it came into people's minds, how people interacted, how they treated each other, how they interacted and how they behaved towards one another, and the ingrained loss of respect for those designated less human than you are. The loss of respect for the oppressed. It dehumanized everybody in the country.
I think we are all, every white in South Africa has some racism in them, because you can't live here without internalizing some of that ghastly stuff. We always had the feeling somewhere along the line that we were better than, just as I believe that every black person in this country has internalized some of that stuff that came from underprivilege, that they were less than. And this is what we're trying to work with now, under many guises. But I think for me it's critical to acknowledge my privilege and to look at the racism that I still carry with me and how it manifests itself, and to be an anti-racist racist.
Never, never apartheid gonna go, never. Our children must forget that she must fight for her rights. Must forget the apartheid never go, never. It's just, it's top. But when you come really, the apartheid is never, I say again, the apartheid is never gonna go.